Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Thira Panachari Jamuna Thira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Gyantimidandasya Gyananjanachalakaya Chakshurun Milidham Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatharine Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's my great honor and pleasure to be with all of you this evening. Thank you to Brajhari Prabhu, Mukunda Madhav Prabhu, Bhima Prabhu, and all of the devotees from Sri Radha Ras Bihari Temple for making this beautiful event possible. And my gratitude to all of you who have come this evening. How do you say it? Happy Republic Day? I wish you a happy Republic Day. As far as I understand, I'm not so expert at politics, but this is the day of the Indian Constitution. There was a great struggle here for independence. Coming from America, the United States, we also struggled for independence from the British, as did you in India. Because it is our constitutional nature to be free. Throughout human history, there has been this battle for freedom. Those who want to usurp the freedom from innocent people to exploit for their own purposes, and those who are willing to stand up, risk their lives to fight for freedom. Srila Prabhupada, our very beloved Guru Maharaj, tells the story of his first meeting with his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. This was in 1922. Srila Prabhupada was then a young man. He was married. He had a little son. And from his childhood, his father and mother were very great devotees of Krishna. He said every morning he would wake up to hearing little bells ringing. And he'd go running and he'd see his mother and father worshiping Radha Govinda in their home. So it was very natural. And his father and mother, they had a special family tradition that every night they would cook extra dinner, prasad, to invite sadhus. And the sadhus would assemble, and the whole family together would serve the sadhus prasad before they would eat. And after serving prasad, giving such loving hospitality. Hospitality is a very deep tradition. And in the Indian culture and in the Vedic literature, it's considered to be a very prominent aspect of our spiritual culture, hospitality. In fact, the Vedic literatures describe that before a family eats, they should go into the street and say, if anyone is hungry, please come and we will feed you. And then feed everybody that comes before they eat. that actually was the tradition for thousands of years. Of course, if you do that today in Mumbai, I don't know if it would work very well. You may not eat all day. But the conception is that nothing is mine. We are not proprietors. We are caretakers. The 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavat describes Janasyo Maho Yamaham Mameti. The very root of all bondage and all suffering is the misconception of I and mine. That I am this body, and if I am this body, that means I'm a man or I'm a woman, or I'm black or white or red or yellow, or I'm Hindu or Muslim or Jew or Jain or Parsi or Sikh or Christian or agnostic or atheist or not knowing. Or I'm Indian or Pakistani or Palestinian or Israeli. Or I'm a human. Or I'm a cow or a donkey. In other words, this conception that I am this body, and whatever is connected to this body, that's me. And whatever this body happens to acquire is mine. My intelligence, my physical strength, my economic strength, my popularity, my influence, my artistic abilities. This misconception is not only the source of all suffering and bondage, but it's the suffering of all conflict and exploitation. So the question is, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, who am I? And is anything mine? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami, where he explains very elaborate, from the basic seed principle of spiritual knowledge, he goes into the philosophy of the soul, the philosophy of karma, the philosophy of evolution, of consciousness, all the way to the point through Artha, Kama, Dhamma, Moksha, and Prem, ecstatic love for Krishna. And he kind of just begins there. Then he goes into the depths of the intimacy of levels of Prem or love that are accessible to the soul through purification. But he begins the whole teaching with Jivara Swarupoi Krishnara Nityadas. From a bhakti perspective, this is the Constitution. It's Republic Day. That our constitutional nature, the inseparable quality of our true self, is that we are eternally the servants of the supreme, all-attractive, all-loving Lord. I am the eternal soul. And what is mine? The free choice to serve with love. To serve God with love, to be an instrument of God's compassion with love, or to live in this dream condition that I am this body and these things are mine. We are the caretakers of whatever is there at our disposal. And therefore, we have a great responsibility to utilize whatever is here within this universal creation in such a way that it is in harmony, in union with the will of the divine of Krishna. Hospitality, this conception, is we recognize this. It's not my food, it's God's food. And it's meant to be used as an instrument of Krishna's compassion, as is our intellect, as is our abilities. So after Srila Prabhupada's, he was just a little boy, Abai, after they would feed all the sadhus that came, then Srila Prabhupada's mother and father, they would ask for only one blessing. But they wouldn't ask for the blessing until they completely satisfied them. In the spirit of hospitality, not only should we be very generous to offer what we can for someone's pleasure, but we should actually make them think that they're blessing us by giving us a chance to serve. Not that I am giving you. You should be grateful. That consciousness doesn't really invoke blessings. Rather, I am grateful to you that you're giving me the chance to serve. In fact, it is a prominent teaching within the Vedas and in the culture. Even if your worst enemy comes to your house, you should treat them so nicely that they, at least while they're there, they forget that they're your enemy. Does that make sense? We find in the Mahabharata, even Duryodhana, he hated the Pandavas. And he had 5 arrows during the battle of Kurukshetra to kill them. And Krishna knew that. So he told the Pandavas, let's go to their tent at night. So they went to Duryodhana's tent. And even though he wanted to kill them, he hated them, he was the most envious person in the world, still he had this tradition. He said to Pandavas, you are my guests, what can I do for you? They said, give us those 5 arrows. He gave it. So, to be grateful. So, Srila Prabhupada's family would serve these sadhus in such a way that they felt so welcome. They felt so that their hosts were so happy that they're there. That's an exclamation point. In other words, when you're serving someone, they should feel very happy. Or they should feel that you are happy in serving them. And this is not something that can come with getting paid for. Just like sometimes you go to a restaurant or you get on an airplane and they say, oh, welcome, we are so happy you're here. And you think, yeah, that's very nice. But if they weren't getting paid, they wouldn't be there to be happy. Yes. They go on strike. And where does that leave you when they go on strike? You're not. Hospitality is a gesture of love. That we're really happy to serve. And when we're happy to serve someone, when we're happy to make people happy, that our happiness becomes their happiness. So after satisfying the sadhus in so many ways, little Abai, who later became Prabhupada, mother and father the sadhus would say, how could we bless you? And they never asked for anything except one thing. They said, please bless our little son Abai. that he will be in his life a very dear servant of Srimati Radharani. And that's how he grew up, seeing the only desire of his parents was that Radharani bless him and be merciful to him. And whenever he woke up, they were doing loving puja. And they were so happy to serve. But what happened is over those years, he saw there was all different kinds of sadhus. He said when he was a boy, he used to look out his window and he saw one man, wife, children, everything else. Just like many people, they go and put on their suit and tie or whatever to go to work. This person would take off his family clothes and put on sadhu, Swami clothes, and go out and beg. And come to his house for dinner. Whatever. So he wasn't very inclined toward sadhus. So his friend, Narendra, one day told him, Abhay, this is when he was just a young man. He said, come, there's a really great sadhu I met him. Please come and meet him. And Abhay said, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a devotee, but I'm not into meeting sadhus. He said, no, this is a special person. I know so many sadhus. I grew up so many sadhus. He said, please come, please come. So just to satisfy his son, he came. And it was on a rooftop, just like this, but a very small rooftop. 1 Ultadunga Junction Road in Calcutta. And knowing the culture, Prabhupada bowed down, and the sadhu told him, you are an intelligent young man. You should take the message of Bhagavad Gita. You should take the message of Sri Chaitanya and spread it throughout the whole world in the English language. And his head was still bowing down. He hadn't even had time to look at him yet. He hadn't had time to meet him yet. There was no introduction, and here he's getting a lifetime instruction. Special effects. So he got him. I guess we have to get used to special effects. Does anyone recognize that song? That's probably good. Prabhupada at the time was a very devoted, serious supporter of Mohandas Gandhi. In those days, wearing white khadi was a declaration of social warfare against the British government. And he wore that white khadi. It was one of Gandhi's things, that we should not buy British milled cloth. We should weave our own khadi cloth, Indian way, just to boycott the British industries. For what purpose? There was the demand, quit India. India or British, quit India, get out from here. And it was very tense. So Srila Prabhupada said to his guru later, he said that this This talking about spreading Sanatan Dharma, that comes later. Who will listen to us in India as long as we are subjugated by the British? First, we must put all our energies into freedom, into getting independent, into being our own republic, having our own constitution. This is really what it means. First, we get freedom. Then we will have credibility and people will hear what we have to say. It was a good argument, and it was spoken with great conviction. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that political parties are always changing. Throughout the world history, one empire conquers another empire conquers that, another empire conquers that, so many changes in government. He said, the eternal need is the independence, the freedom of the soul from illusion, from this misconception of I and mine. Liberation, not just political liberation, but liberation from ahankar, from the false ego. Liberation from the desire to control, from the desire to exploit. Liberation from being a slave of our mind and our senses and the minds and senses of others. Liberation from birth, old age, disease, and death. That is real freedom. And that's the great need of the world. There are so many people fighting for these social efforts. But the great need, the basic foundational necessity, is to be free of death and suffering. And that comes through Dharma. By the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, by learning to live in a spirit of seva, a spirit of devotional service, we can actually learn how to love Krishna. And there's nothing in this world that can interrupt that. When Srila Prabhupada heard that, he told us so many years later, he said, I am happy to tell you that I was so happy to be defeated by my Guru. And he actually made that his mission. We all have that need to be free. It is a spiritual need. When we actually connect with that free nature of the soul, then we are no longer bound by the chains of selfishness. Krishna tells in Gita, when you have thus learned the truth, you will understand that all beings are in me, are of me, and are mine. To see the equality of all life. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling in South India, he came to a place called Kurmakshetra. There is an ancient temple of Kurmadev, one of the great avatars of Vishnu. And Lord Chaitanya, he was having kirtan there for many, many hours. And all the villagers from all the villages in the surrounding area were chanting with him. And he was bestowing upon everyone this freedom that we all crave for. Spiritual freedom. Srila Prabhupada quoted Socrates. He was teaching about the liberation of the soul. And the government of the time, they considered this a great threat. So they arrested him and put him in prison and decided the penalty is death. So they brought some poison hemlock for him to drink. And the guard brought it into the chamber of his prison and said, "You drink this and you die." And Socrates was very happy. He smiled. He said, "You cannot kill me until you could find me." Now the guard was really bewildered by that. What does that mean? You're in prison, you're But Socrates was a self-realized soul in this sense. He had attained that liberation. He realized that he was the soul. He wasn't the body or the mind. And the soul cannot be killed. And unless you can see your own soul, you cannot see the soul in others. So Lord Chaitanya was giving this freedom to all the people. And there was one man, he was known as the Kurma Brahmin. He invited Lord Chaitanya, "Please come to my home." And when Lord Chaitanya came to his home, he gave this type of hospitality. He was quite a wealthy person. And he just gave a seat and all sorts of respect and honor to Lord Chaitanya. He said, "Your feet are worshipped by Brahma. Your feet are worshipped by the Devas, and now those same feet have come to my house. I am so grateful. My wealth, my body, my life, my family, everything has become auspicious because you are accepting my service." He said, "I have one thing I want to ask you. The waves of the sufferings of material life are weighing heavy on me. I want to leave my family and go with you wherever you go." Now, most people would think a Swami like Lord Chaitanya, he was in that role, would be very happy with that proposal. Lord Chaitanya spoke very strongly. He said, "No. Do not speak like that again." He said, "You remain in the position you are in. You have a wife, you have children, you have responsibilities to the society. Carry it out. But live with character. Chant the names of Krishna. Hear from the Bhagavad Gita in these great scriptures. Live by these principles. Teach these principles through your words and through your actions. And in this way, none of the waves of material existence will disturb you." In other words, spirituality is not just about changing our position. It's about changing our consciousness. He told the Kurma Brahmin, just chant Krishna's names and become purified. Just live and teach these Bhagavad Gita principles. And not only will you be liberated, but you could be the guru for the whole world. So Lord Chaitanya spent that night with him, and the next morning he was going to leave to continue his pilgrimage to the south of India. And after he left, the Kurma Brahmin followed him. And Lord Chaitanya said, you go home. And he went home. At that time, after Lord Chaitanya had already walked many hours, there was a very simple man named Vasudeva who had heard that Sri Chaitanya was at the house of Kurma. Vasudeva had acute, advanced state of leprosy. It was so bad that he was exiled from the society. He was rejected. His body was so decomposed. It smelled horrible. His flesh was just rotting. And all over his body, there were living worms eating him away. Now, you cannot imitate Vasudeva, nor can I. But understand the principle of the state of consciousness of these people. Could I tell a little story? Then I'm going to get back to this. One time, in this book I wrote, The Journey Home, I was living in Bharsana, Braj Bhumi. And I had severe dysentery. And there are no toilets there. I was living on a mountain. So I'd have to go into a jungle, some distance from this ancient, crumbling little temple that I was living at. And I would squat down, because that's the way you do it. And I'd have a little container of water. And this big poisonous snake crawled right up to me and he actually put his body on my feet, because I was crouched down, and then stopped and looked at me. And I looked at him. I don't know if it was a him or her, but I think it was a him. Because I was like a sadhu, and I was, I was in the middle of, I'm not going to make any special effects, but the dysentery was pouring out of me. And I hope it was a boy snake, because he was looking right up at me. And his tongue was going, and I was praying to Radharani, please save me. And I was thinking, what a terrible way to die. While this liquid excrement just pouring out of me on one side, the snake's he just kind of went to sleep on my feet for a few minutes, and then looked at me again and went away. When I chanted Krishna's names in total desperation, even though I was very afraid of the snake, when you're really desperate and you really take shelter of the holy name, even a little guy like me, actually I felt fearless. I saw this snake as my brother or sister. Whatever he or she does, it's Krishna's will. And the snake went away after I kind of learned that lesson. And somehow or other, when I turned around, I happened to see what came out the other side. I'm going to elongate this class a little so you don't have to take prasad right after hearing this story. And what came out was at least 2/3 living worms. They were just swimming around and moving around and going up and down, and they were having a really good time in there. And that scared me. I'm really sick. Now here's Vasudev. His worms are on every part of his body, eating his flesh away. And if a single worm fell from him, Vasudev, he saw a part of Krishna. He saw a brother, a sister, in the heart of each worm. He would carefully pick up the worm and put it back right in the place it fell from. His consciousness was that I'm a soul and I'm living in this body, and these worms are also souls and they're living in the body. So why do I have any rights over them? I guess we can interpret it that he was thinking they were like roommates. They were eating him away, but still, he wouldn't just pick them up ritualistically, with honor, with respect, very gentle, with affection. That was his consciousness. And he went to surrender his heart to Lord Chaitanya. Because yegata mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamya. According to the nature of our surrender, according to how we take shelter within ourselves, Krishna reveals himself. Because he had that love for Krishna, he could actually see a loving brother or sister in the worms. And Krishna, from the heart of the worms, from his own heart, was reciprocating with him. His compassion was not just a ritual. It was not just based on a philosophical principle. It was based on love. It must have been very difficult for him to go to the Kurma Brahmin's house, as sickly as he was. And when he arrived, he found out Lord Chaitanya, many hours before, had already left and gone on in his tour. And his heart was broken. He was feeling, I missed the opportunity of my life. He knew that Lord Chaitanya was his beloved Lord Krishna, because the Lord revealed that in his own heart. Faith is a gift. Faith is the most precious thing in all of creation, because it could connect us to the means by which we could be forever free from illusion and reconnected with Krishna, with our beloved Lord. That faith was awakened within his heart. And he was feeling pang of separation. The Lord who I have given my heart, my life, my everything to was so close, and I missed him. Now in those days, he didn't have a text message or an SMS. Lord Chaitanya, I'm here. Krishna doesn't answer those kinds of messages. But the sincerity of the heart, because he's in our heart. Lord Chaitanya understood Vasudev's heart, and he turned around and came back hours and hours to the house. And when he saw Vasudev, he came to embrace the leper. And Vasudev tried to get away because his body had pus and blood and infections and worms coming out of it, and it smelled so bad. But Lord Chaitanya embraced him and squeezed him with his embrace, with such love. And as soon as he was embraced, all the leprosy disappeared. It doesn't say this, but we could kind of assume that because Vasudeva was so respectful to all those thousands and thousands of worms, they probably all got liberated. And his body was very healthy. In fact, it was lustrous with a beautiful aura of light. He was beautiful. He was healthy. And Vasudeva spoke from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of Sudama, Vipra, and Krishna. He said, who am I? I am just a very fallen, simple, ordinary, poor Brahmin. And who are you? The supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. And you have embraced me with your arms. Vasudeva said, how is this possible? There is nobody in this world who will even come near me because of the stench of rotten flesh all over me. What to speak of the infections, contagious. And yet, you lovingly embraced me, not seeing anything negative. You must be my beloved Lord. Now that he was completely cured, everybody who saw him would understand that he had received the special causeless mercy of God. And people would think he's a saint, because there was no cure for leprosy in those days. He didn't say anything, but in his mind he was thinking. He was fearful. As long as he had leprosy and he was totally abominable and everybody just was disgusted and didn't want anything to do with him, he was very humble. And in his humility, he was offering all respect to everyone, from the worms till everybody else. And not only that, but he was really from the core of his heart taking shelter of Krishna. But he was thinking, now that I have received such special mercy and people see me like I am, they'll think I'm saintly. And I'll become proud. I may start thinking I'm better than others. And as soon as this false ego enters the heart, then our devotion is spoiled. Lord Chaitanya taught this principle. Trinadapi sunichena toror ibasihishnana. Amanina manandena kirtaniya sadahari. That if we really want to taste the name of Krishna, we have to chant in such a way that Krishna is so pleased to reciprocate with us, to reveal. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Prabhupada told us that the name of Krishna is not different than Krishna. The name of Radha is Radha. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasvigra. Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. That all the power, the beauty, the grace, the sweetness, the love of God is within the name. And we will taste the sweetness of the name when we are humble. More humble than a blade of grass. When we are tolerant and forgiving like the tree. When we offer all respect to all others. Not selectively, but to all others. Of course, the way we offer that respect, we offer a certain type of respect to saintly people, to great souls. But we also learn to offer respect to the Atma, to the soul in every living being. And we don't expect respect for oneself. In that state, Lord Chaitanya taught we could chant the name constantly. Vasudeva was thinking, now that I'm going to become very famous by anybody who sees me or hears about me, what if I become proud? Then my devotion is spoiled. In other words, he preferred to be a leper in a humble position than to be a very healthy, beautiful person with false ego. Because his standard of happiness is what pleases Krishna. Krishna's happy when we're humble, when we have respect. He was fearful. When he was a leper, he had no fear. Now he was fearful of pride, of egoism. And Lord Chaitanya read his mind and spoke. He said, you have no need of fear. He gave him the same instruction as he gave Kurma. Always chant the names of Krishna. Hear the Bhagavad Gita. Teach the Bhagavad Gita to others through your life and through your words. And then you have no fear of false pride. When we understand we're eternally the servant of Krishna, that is real freedom. And Sri Chaitanya taught another principle. Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayora Dasa Dasa Das Anudas. In Jagannath Puri during the Ratha Yatra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed his ecstasies of Sri Radha, of bringing Jagannath Krishna back to Vrindavan after years of separation. That was his Mahabhava. But he began by establishing this beautiful principle of offering this prayer to Lord Jagannath. I'm not any of these material designations. I'm not a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyas. Who am I? I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of your servants. This is the spirit that Lord Chaitanya taught us to chant the holy names. And to connect with the all-beautiful, all-merciful, all-loving, all-powerful name of God. In that spirit, we we are given by Krishna's grace independence forever. From all of this envy, lust, greed, anger, arrogance, and illusion. To be free of those unwanted qualities within our heart is actual independence, real freedom. Srila Prabhupada, while he taught us these things, he also honored the governments that gave us freedom to practice. It was quite an extraordinary thing. There are many letters and conversations where Srila Prabhupada was really grateful to the country of America, with all of its whatever. He said, the government is giving us the freedom to go on the streets and express our devotion. In 1971, I believe it was, Prabhupada went to Russia. Shyam Sundar went with him. That's a beautiful story. Srila Prabhupada was invited by a Professor Katowski, who was at Moscow University, to come and give some speech. And Prabhupada was trying to get a visa in so many ways, but he couldn't. And ultimately he asked Shyam Sundar, his secretary, such a loving, incredible devotee. And Shyam Sundar, within a day, got him a visa. And he went with Prabhupada to Moscow. This is 1971, at the time when the Cold War was at its peak, when communism and the KGB was very, very oppressive. And there was no freedom of religion. In fact, besides going to the college to speak, everything and everywhere Prabhupada wanted to do, he was escorted by KGB guards to make sure he wasn't doing anything he wasn't supposed to do. Very oppressive. And one day Shyam Sundar went looking for some vegetables. And in those days, he was walking around Moscow for hours looking for vegetables. Couldn't find vegetables. But while he was walking, a Russian boy walked up to him and said, because Shyam Sundar looked different. He said, the Russian boy said to him, "Are you from America?" Shyam Sundar said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have any blue jeans? Or do you have any rock and roll records?" Shyam Sundar said, "No, but I have a guru. Would you like to meet him?" Well, I guess the boy thought if America, people have a guru, then it must be a good thing. So he brought, Prabhupada just had a little room in the National Hotel. And this was the only opportunity Prabhupada had, really, to speak openly to the people of Russia, because he was being guarded everywhere except inside his hotel room. So this one boy sat there, and Prabhupada spent 3 days, all days, teaching him about Bhagavad Gita's teachings and giving him the holy name, and gave him initiation, Ananta Shanti. And later on, this Ananta Shanti, incredible person, he had one request to Prabhupada. He wanted a wife from the West. He wasn't so advanced yet, but he was open. He said, I need some association. So if you could get me a wife who's a devotee. So Prabhupada flew from Moscow to Paris, and he asked a girl, would you like to go to Russia and marry a person? She said, oh yes, of course. And she went. Her name is Mandakini Devi. What an incredible lady. I was just with her a few months ago. Unbelievable. Her fearlessness, her faith, her devotion. The two of them underground created a spiritual revolution in the Soviet Union. Shamsundar smuggled one Bhagavad Gita. You know that story? He was told at the immigration, you're not allowed to bring any religious books into Russia. So he was very careful not to bring it. But his wife, Shamsundar's wife, Malati, she packed his bag for him. Or he packed his bag. But what she did is she took a Bhagavad Gita. He packed his bag, but she took a Bhagavad Gita and slipped it under some of his clothes. And he didn't know it was there. So when he went to the Russian immigration and customs, they said, you have any books? He said, no. And they opened his suitcase and they opened it in such a way that all his clothes fell out and the Bhagavad Gita. And they said, what is that? He could have been put in prison. But by Krishna's grace, all his clothes fell out too. And the immigration was kind of embarrassed that they spilled all his clothes out. So they didn't make an issue about the Bhagavad Gita. And he gave that to Ananta Shanti and Mandakini. And they started copying the Bhagavad Gitas by hand. And in this way, thousands and thousands of Bhagavad Gitas were going underground all over Russia. People were getting one and copying it. Or going, whatever little ways that they could. I want to tell you an interesting story. Recently, when I was in Ukraine, there was a festival, a bhakti festival for Krishna of ISKCON. And there were 12,000 Ukrainian devotees there. And amazing kirtans. It was, I think, a 7-day festival. This all came from that little seed of that person sitting in Prabhupada's room. And that Bhagavad Gita accidentally being smuggled in. And then later I went to a Russian festival, and there was about 8,000. And there's tens and tens and thousands. It all began with that one little conversation in a hotel room, secretly. Shamsundar tells the story that just toward the end of their visit, the KGB and the guards wanted to give them a little tour. So actually they went up to Moscow University to give a lecture, and it was on the top of a hill. And Prabhupada and Shamsundar, just the two of them, were on top of a building, on top of a mountain, and they were looking down at the whole of Moscow. And Srila Prabhupada said, in a few years, communism in Russia will crumble and be finished. Because it is so oppressive to the people. He said the people here are so good, but the government is so oppressive, it cannot last. And sure enough, what happened? What he said came true. You see, it is the instinctive nature to be free. And Srila Prabhupada was telling Shamsundar how fortunate he was to have been coming from America. Even with all of its problems, there's a basic right of freedom there. And when we use that right of freedom to actually help to free our own souls from ignorance, from suffering, from death, from envy and anger and illusion, that's the highest, fullest, truest expression of freedom. Lord Chaitanya didn't teach a violent revolution. He taught a very peaceful revolution. A revolution of transformation of consciousness. And this is what he told Vasudeva and the Kurma Brahman. This is how you can be eternally free. Just live according to the principles of the Lord as he is giving us in the Gita. And chant the holy names. And when we taste the sweetness of that freedom, we become so grateful that we just want to share it with everyone. Shamsundar tells another story. That in San Francisco in 1967, January, when Prabhupada first came, Shamsundar and Malati had a big dog. I think his name was Ralph. And that dog was always jumping on Prabhupada and licking him and going on his bed and doing all these things. And Prabhupada never said anything. But they were thinking it's not good, dogs are not so clean, so they gave Sam away to someone, or they gave Ralph away to someone else. They used to drive Prabhupada around in their car. They had an old convertible, a really beaten up old convertible. And Shamsundar would drive, and Prabhupada would be in the passenger seat, and Ralph was always jumping around in the back seat. And so they gave Ralph away. And one day they got in the car, and Prabhupada said, "Where is Ralph?" He said, "Well, we gave him away, Prabhupada." He said, "Why did you give him away?" This really affected them. Prabhupada was compassionate to every living being. Prabhupada wanted to give this spiritual freedom. One time a devotee asked Prabhupada, "How could we repay you for what you've given us?" Srila Prabhupada was very humble. He didn't want anything for himself. He said, "Just open your heart to receive what I am giving you. Live by these principles and share it with others." That's Krishna's message. That's the essence of Dharma. To receive Krishna's grace and to share that grace with others. And kirtan is a special way of sharing grace, because this transcendental sound vibration, every bacteria that hears it. I don't think bacteria has ears, but they experience vibration of sound. Sound vibration's the most powerful thing in the creation. There are so many different kinds of sound vibration. But this kirtan, especially when many people are chanting together from their hearts, this sound vibration is awakening the souls in the insects, in the birds, in the reptiles, in all the different types of animals, and in even all different kinds of human beings. It's a way of sharing. And to the degree we are actually taking shelter and living by these principles of Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Dasa Dasanu Das, the power and the mercy of that grace can really manifest through us. So that we could be free, and we could give that freedom to others. And I guess we should probably celebrate Republic Day by having kirtan and share this wonderful spiritual freedom with the whole universal creation. That is the gift Prabhupada has given us. This temple of Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari recently, His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and others, Bhima Prabhu, they were describing to us of the unbelievable struggles and challenges that Prabhupada had here to try to make this wonderful facility available to the people of Mumbai and to the people of the whole world. Why? He wanted to share this benediction of bhakti to bring freedom. Freedom of consciousness. One time, a devotee asked Prabhupada, which is closer, the sun or the moon? Now, he answered this question many ways and many times. But I remember I was once brushing a cow, and I heard a little cassette tape of somebody asking Prabhupada this. And Prabhupada said, whether the sun is closer or the moon is closer is not the real problem. The real problem is birth, old age, disease, and death. I like that answer. Because we have so many technical things that we can argue about, and there's truths that, are supported in scriptures and everything like that. But ultimately, Prabhupada said the real problem is birth, old age, disease, and death. And this is what we should focus on. Living in a spirit of seva. and chanting God's holy names. Thank you very much.